listening to more than the words. You get me. You really listen. Wow, you really figured me out quick. These are statements that I will often hear in a relationship or after dating someone. I think something I have always done well is listen, but not in the conventional way, I suppose. I mean, until recently when I realized why love was not enough, another podcast of mine, I could hardly accept empathy, let alone give it myself. I was never the one in class who read the chapters prepared for that day. I just listened to the conversations in class, and the chapters wrote themselves. I've analyzed my own life and situations so much that I write and I think in a stream of consciousness that often leaves me stuck with disappointment at the responses to my spew. Although I do love some small talk. I think to myself, well, yes, of course it can be X, Y, or Z. I already thought of those prior to spewing, but what do you think about it beyond the generic alphabet? Even though they say to me, I feel heard, there is that disconnect where I go, but do you hear me? Do you see me? Do you know me beyond the words? Because I want to hear and understand your thoughts beyond your words. The thought I just saw behind your eyes as you had your own truth, but suppressed it for the acceptable answer. The thing is, I had trauma in my childhood, so when I got home every day, my brain was already tuned to listen and observe intently to gauge the current status of how everyone was feeling that day. Now, as an adult, where the trauma is removed from the equation, my brain doesn't stop looking deeply at microexpressions and trying to read the room. This is a byproduct of childhood trauma regardless of the work and self-healing I have put into it. So when I look at someone, I see a lot more than perhaps a normal glance. I do not claim to be able to read people, I just pay attention to many factors: body language, inflections, eye movement, microexpressions, all in the blink of an eye subconsciously. Believe me though, I am going to be wrong in my analysis at times, and I definitely will not say everything right, nor read you correctly every time, sometimes even projecting my own insecurities and thoughts into the situation. This is why it is so important for someone to tell me what's on their mind as a kindness and not a chore, which I speak more about in the podcast, Give My Brain a Breather. I listen to people through their eyes, their inflections, the curvature of the outer portions of their lips. Often we say one thing, but for whatever defensive self-conscious reason, it means something completely different. I've been burned by words so many times that I adapted to read way past the words and into the subconscious. No, I'm not a mind reader, and I do not get it right all the time. Sometimes I think too far beyond the surface, and often what I'm getting is actually just surface. I suppose the most interesting and engaging moments of interaction with others is when the surface leads to the actuality. I'm also inquisitive by nature, so it's only natural for me to look for the meaning. This is what separates the friendships from the relationships for me. When people can give me the surface as is, and then I can put my running mind at ease, knowing they have already gone over the internal, when those two mix, it is like a perfect plated meal of flavors, textures, and presentation to me. But when the surface is used to hide reality, it's when there is going to be a failure down the line. More importantly, it's being able to see when the surface is just that, and then comparing it to your needs, your wants, your likes, your dislikes, and knowing when to call it quits or if I should pursue further. I guess that is why I dislike the games you can play in a relationship, and I have so much to share so quickly. That is my defense to weed out those who play them. The more I share, the faster I can determine if the person on the other end will be overwhelmed or isn't as committed to the idea of what we are doing. I am not one to sit through a long book without analyzing line by line for the purpose of absorbing those lines, notating, highlighting, and memorizing the things that I think resonate. I very rarely get to the end without wanting to talk about every page and chapter. In school, I would get my reading done by listening to the teacher, listening to the students, reading into their voices, reading into their tone, and figuring out the outcome they were holding back. I was able to form opinions and debate them firmly. I valued picking one side of the fence, placing a home, digging the foundation for a pool, planning out where the plots for me and my family would rest after this life. But knowing damn straight the government might come and build a rail right through the middle, understanding that even though I dug in deep, that there is always another perspective that could change it. I guess I pick a side of the fence because oftentimes in my life and with the people that I knew growing up, they would teeter on it. And so I pick one side of the fence or the other with the hope that someone, if they have a better opinion or a better idea, can tell me about the other side, regardless of the color of the grass. That perspective gives me the strength to break down the fence. The California versus New York approach has always been a good example of this. For instance, I could say, "What do you want for dinner?" And in response, they would say, "Stop interrogating me." But where I was raised, a simple question usually had a strong opinionated response. So I value a good debate because to me, that is conversation. I like when people know what they want and are open to wanting more. I don't want to constantly place down new roots, but I understand the value in it when there is a good reason. Moving around a lot with divorced parents has made me value home more than I probably should, and often locks me to the sense of comfort in places that might not actually be comfortable for my mind. So I put a lot of weight in these moments where I can sit and just listen. A picture on, say, Facebook or Instagram tells very little, but an album or scrolling way back tells a lot. You can understand personality, things people are self-conscious about, self-awareness, self-perception, family relationships, how people spend their time, compatibility. So much that it can freak people out if you point it out. But it is just me listening, even if you're not speaking and it's just through an image. People want to be mysterious and special, but we are all the same pile of shit. We just mask it in different ways. What I love is when no matter what, you are yourself. But more than being yourself, when you and me have commonalities, that makes the communication fluent. It's hard to be the person who listens because it often comes with the stigma of you read too much into things or end up disappointed by what you hear or see. I will say that it is something I value very much, though, because I know when I do find that someone who can put in the same amount of instant analysis of multiple scenarios in one sentence, that there's going to be a lot to talk about, and those talks will have a lot of life for both of us. Conversation and communication is hard as it is, and having the ability to connect in a way that puts your eyes and words in line is magical and shouldn't be underrated. I've always said I prefer to be alone and lonely than together and frustrated. It isn't fair to anyone, especially yourself. It locks two people who have limited time here on this earth into a purgatory of sorts. I love to share my stream of consciousness with others because while I may not be saying the most original things, I can often show people they are not alone. They can be happy and they deserve to put a lot more effort into themselves. A job, money, love. There needs to be a better balance in these three things that we are told growing up in life that we should yearn for. And therefore we do. The interactions that we have are the true meaning of life. The job and the money only allow for us to have more. And we need to understand that a relationship that isn't going to work can be a beautiful friendship if we just open our eyes and listen before it twists our eyes to only see the shit we drag one another through to finally understand one another.